My name is Ethan Cole. People in town often call me the rough around the edges mechanic. And honestly, they're not wrong. I run a small old garage where the smell of grease and engine oil hangs heavy in the air. My jeans are always worn, my t-shirt stained with dirt and oil. But none of that matters. Everything I do, every hour I work, is for one reason: my little girl, Lila. Her mother left us years ago. And since then, Lila has been my whole world. Her tiny footsteps echoing in our small home, her laughter filling the silence, and her little voice whispering, "Daddy, you're my hero." That's what keeps me alive. I don't have wealth, but I'd trade anything in the world just to see her smile. That day, I was standing outside my garage when a red luxury car suddenly broke down in the middle of the street. Smoke curled up from under the hood, and traffic began to pile up. From the driver's seat, a woman stepped out. She had long golden hair that shimmered in the sunlight and eyes that carried both confidence and worry. She didn't look like someone used to asking strangers for help. I walked up quickly. "Your engine's overheated," I said. "If you pull it over to my garage, I can take a look. No charge." She hesitated, as if asking for help from a stranger was the last thing she wanted to do. "A garage? Right now? I'm already late," she muttered under her breath. I smiled. "Don't worry, it won't take long. And trust me, it's better than blocking the whole street." Reluctantly, she nodded and moved the car aside. I popped the hood and started inspecting the engine. That's when I heard a small giggle behind me. I turned and saw a little girl leaning out of the backseat window. Blonde hair tied into a ponytail, cheeks rosy, eyes sparkling with curiosity. She looked like a doll come to life. "Hi, pretty girl," I said softly. "I'm fixing your mama's car." She leaned closer, lowering her voice as if she was about to share the biggest secret in the world. And what she whispered stopped my heart cold. "She's not my mama, but she should be. Please, will you marry her?" My hands froze on the wrench. I lifted my head from under the hood, stunned. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh, to ask her what she meant, or to just let the words sink in. Lila, my own daughter, had never once asked me for another mom. But here was this little girl, a stranger, whispering a wish that struck a chord deep inside me. A wish that I didn't even realize I'd been carrying in my own heart. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring at the little girl's wide, hopeful eyes. My wrench felt heavy in my hand. What she had whispered wasn't just childish play. It felt like a plea so innocent, it carried the weight of truth. Before I could respond, the woman's voice broke the silence. "Lila, don't bother the man," she said firmly, though there was a softness in her tone. My eyebrows arched. Lila? That was my daughter's name. But this little girl, this wasn't my Lila. And yet, fate had thrown a strange coincidence right in front of me. The woman walked closer, brushing her hair back nervously. "I'm sorry," she said, glancing at me with those piercing golden brown eyes. She tends to say things that surprise people. I smiled faintly, trying to ease the moment. "It's all right. Kids have a way of saying exactly what's on their minds. And sometimes, they say what adults are too scared to." Her gaze lingered on me for a heartbeat too long before she looked away. I bent back over the engine. "By the way, I didn't catch your name." "Aria Lane," she replied after a pause. Her voice had a melodic lilt to it, the kind that stays with you long after you hear it. "And this chatterbox is my niece, Sophie." "Niece, not daughter." My chest tightened in a way I couldn't explain. Aria crouched beside the car, resting one hand gently on Sophie's shoulder. "Her parents, they passed away last year. She lives with me now." Her words carried a quiet pain, one that didn't need to be explained. Suddenly, Sophie's whisper made sense. She wasn't just being playful. She was longing for something she had lost. I swallowed hard and kept my eyes on the engine. "I'm sorry," I muttered, not sure what else to say. "It's fine," Arya answered, though her voice wavered. "We're managing." A silence hung between us, broken only by the soft hiss of steam from the radiator. I tightened a bolt and stepped back. "All right, the car's safe to drive now, but it needs a new part. I can order it and fix it tomorrow." She reached into her bag, pulling out a sleek wallet. "How much do I owe you?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Consider it a neighborly favor." Her brows furrowed. "Nothing? You spent your time." "I said free of cost," I interrupted, meeting her gaze. "Sometimes people just need a break." For the first time, she smiled. Not the polite, guarded kind of smile strangers give each other, but a real smile, warm and genuine. And just like that, I felt something stir inside me. From the back seat, Sophie's little voice chimed again. "See Aunt Arya? He's nice. Daddy nice." Arya blushed, clearing her throat as if she hadn't heard. But I had. And in that single moment, something shifted. An invisible thread pulling the three of us closer in a way I couldn't quite explain. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange, I drove my rusty pickup truck back home. Lila sat beside me, swinging her legs and humming a tune only she knew. She was always like that, bright, full of life, even when I was tired and weighed down by the day. I hadn't told her about Arya or Sophie yet. Somehow, I didn't know how to put it into words. How do you explain to your daughter that a stranger's child had whispered something so powerful it shook you to the core? "Daddy," Lila piped up suddenly, her brown curls bouncing as she turned to face me. "Why are you so quiet?" I forced a smile. "Just tired, sweetheart. Long day. But kids, especially my kids, see right through you." She squinted her big hazel eyes at me, then gave a cheeky grin. "You met someone, didn't you?" I almost swerved the truck. "What? No. Uh-huh," she sang, giggling. "I can tell. Your face goes funny when you're hiding something." I shook my head, chuckling despite myself. This girl. She was too sharp. The next afternoon, fate worked its tricks again. Arya's red car rolled into my garage, Sophie waving excitedly from the back window. Lila was there too, sitting on a stool with her coloring book. As soon as Sophie spotted her, she jumped out of the car. "Hi, I'm Sophie." Lila looked up, cautious at first, then smiled. "I'm Lila." Within minutes, the two of them were giggling like old friends, swapping crayons and drawing strange animals that made no sense but made perfect sense to them. I stood back, wiping grease from my hands, watching as Arya leaned against the wall, her arms crossed but her eyes soft as she watched Sophie laugh again. Really laugh. It was the kind of sound that told me this child hadn't laughed like that in a long, long time. "They get along fast," I said quietly. Arya nodded, her voice low. "Sophie doesn't open up to many people. She's been carrying more than a child her age should." I wanted to say something comforting, but words felt clumsy. Instead, I handed her a bottle of water. She accepted it, our fingers brushing for a second too long. And just like that, I felt it again, the same invisible thread pulling us closer. By the time the sun set, the girls were sitting on the garage floor, coloring side by side. Lila suddenly looked up at me and grinned. "Daddy, can Sophie come over tomorrow? Please." Sophie's eyes lit up. "Yes, please. Aunt Arya, can I?" Arya hesitated, her gaze flickering between the two girls, then to me. Finally, she sighed and smiled. "We'll see." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. And somehow that small opening was enough to set something new in motion, something bigger than any of us could see yet. The next few days blurred into something different. My garage, usually quiet except for the clang of tools and the hum of engines, was now alive with the sound of laughter. Lila and Sophie had become inseparable, like two puzzle pieces that had been waiting to find each other. Every morning, Sophie would tug at Arya's hand, begging her to stop by the garage. And every time Arya gave in just a little faster than before. At first, it was for Sophie's sake. But soon, I began to notice the way Arya lingered even after the car was fixed, how she'd find reasons to stay just a little longer. Asking me questions about cars she didn't care about or sipping slowly from a cup of coffee she didn't finish. One Saturday afternoon, I invited them over for dinner. I half expected Arya to politely decline, but to my surprise, she agreed. Our house wasn't much. Small, a little worn down, with squeaky floorboards and mismatched chairs. But when Arya stepped inside, carrying a plate of homemade lasagna, it felt warmer than it had in years. "Wow," she said softly as her eyes fell on the framed crayon drawings covering the fridge. "Lila's work." "Yeah," I replied with a sheepish grin. "She's the real artist in the family." During dinner, the girls chattered endlessly, swapping stories, whispering secrets, and giggling between bites. For once, the silence that usually clung to my house was gone, replaced with life and light. After we tucked the girls in, yes, both of them insisted on a sleepover, Arya and I sat on the porch. The night air was cool, and the stars stretched endlessly above us. "You're good with her," I said quietly. Arya turned her head, her golden hair catching the moonlight. "With Sophie," I nodded. "She trusts you. That doesn't happen easily. Not for a child who's lost so much." She was quiet for a moment, staring at the stars. Then she whispered, "I promised my sister on her hospital bed that I'd raise Sophie like my own. But some days, I wonder if I'm enough." Her voice cracked on the last word. Without thinking, I placed my hand over hers. "You're more than enough," I said firmly. "Sophie doesn't just see you as an aunt. She sees you as the safe place she's been searching for." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time since I'd met her, her guard seemed to lower completely. Then, almost on cue, the porch door creaked open. Two small figures tiptoed out. Lila and Sophie holding hands, their eyes wide with guilt for sneaking out. "What are you two doing here?" I asked, trying to sound stern. Sophie glanced at Arya, then at me, and whispered the words that made my heart skip a beat all over again. "She's my mom, and he's your dad. Why don't you just get married already?" Lila gasped, covering her mouth. "Sophie, you can't just say that." But Sophie stood her ground, her little chin tilted stubbornly. Arya froze, her cheeks flushing deep red. I didn't know whether to laugh or bury my face in my hands. All I knew was, kids have a funny way of saying things adults are too scared to admit. And in that moment, I couldn't deny it. Sophie had voiced the very thought I'd been fighting to keep buried. The girl's words lingered long after they had fallen asleep again. Arya and I sat in silence on the porch, the night buzzing with crickets, but neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, she broke the silence. "Children don't understand," she whispered. "They think life is as simple as wishes and dreams, but it isn't." I turned to her. "Maybe it's not supposed to be complicated. Maybe we adults make it that way." Her lips curved into a sad smile. "You don't know me, Ethan. You don't know the weight I carry." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For a second, I wanted to push, wanted to know more, but I understood what it meant to carry burdens too heavy to share. So instead, I said quietly, "You're right. I don't know everything, but I know what I see. And what I see is a woman doing everything she can for a little girl who depends on her. That counts for more than you think." Her eyes shimmered in the moonlight, but she didn't reply. The next day, while I was fixing a truck in the garage, Arya arrived to pick up Sophie. But this time she wasn't smiling. She looked restless, almost distant. "Everything okay?" I asked, wiping my hands on a rag. She hesitated, then exhaled. "Ethan, I don't think we should keep coming around so much." Her words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Why not?" "It's too much," she said softly. "Sophie's already attaching, and I can't let her get hurt again. She's lost enough." "And what about you?" I asked, my voice lower than I intended. She blinked, startled. "What about me?" "You've lost too. I can see it in your eyes every time you look at her. You're protecting Sophie, yes, but maybe you're protecting yourself even more." Her lips trembled, but she shook her head. "You don't understand. I can't afford to make mistakes. Not with her." I stepped closer, my heart thundering. "And what if this isn't a mistake, Arya? What if this is exactly what both of them need? What if it's what we need?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she turned away. "Please, don't make this harder than it already is." With that, she guided Sophie into the car. Sophie waved at me and Lila with her usual bright smile, but even she sensed something was different. As the red car disappeared down the street, Lila tugged at my sleeve. "Daddy?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Are they not coming back?" I crouched down, pulling her into my arms. My chest felt tight, my throat burning. "I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know." But deep inside, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't let this end here. Not when fate had brought Arya and Sophie into our lives so unexpectedly. And not when a part of me already knew I couldn't imagine life without them anymore. Days passed without a sign of Arya and Sophie. The garage felt emptier than ever, even with Lila's laughter echoing through it. She tried to stay cheerful, but every time she glanced at the empty corner where Sophie usually sat coloring, I could see the sadness in her eyes. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, she whispered, "Daddy, did I do something wrong? Is that why Sophie doesn't come anymore?" Her question broke me in a way nothing else ever had. I hugged her tightly. "No, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults just get scared." She frowned. "But you're not scared, right?" I hesitated, then kissed her forehead. "Not anymore." The very next day, I made up my mind. I drove across town to Arya's house. My heart pounded as I knocked on her door. When it opened, Sophie's face lit up instantly. "Ethan!" she squealed, throwing her arms around me. Arya appeared behind her, surprise flashing in her eyes. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" I took a deep breath. "I came because this isn't finished. Not for me, not for Lila, and I don't think for you either." Her jaw tightened. "Ethan, I told you." "No." I cut her off gently. "You told me you're afraid, and I get it. Losing people changes you. It makes you build walls so high you forget what the sun feels like." "But Arya," I paused, stepping closer. "Sometimes the only way to honor what we've lost is by letting ourselves live again." Her eyes filled with tears. Sophie tugged at her hand, whispering, "Please, Aunt Arya, he makes you smile. Don't go back to being sad." In that moment, something shifted in her face, the cracks in her armor finally showing. I continued, my voice low but steady. "I'm not asking for promises. I'm not asking you to have it all figured out. I'm just asking you to take one step. With me, with Lila, with Sophie, together." The silence stretched for what felt like forever. Then, slowly, Arya nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Sophie squealed, hugging both of us. At that exact moment, Lila came running up the path. She'd slipped out of the truck when I wasn't looking. She saw Sophie and tackled her in a hug, both girls giggling and holding hands like they'd never been apart. I looked at Arya, and she looked back at me. For the first time, there was no hesitation in her eyes. Only warmth. Only hope. And just when I thought my heart couldn't take more, Sophie leaned toward Lila and whispered loudly enough for us all to hear. "See? I told you. She's my mom. And he's your dad. Now everything's perfect." Arya laughed through her tears, and even I couldn't help but chuckle. The truth was, it wasn't perfect. Life never is. But standing there, with our daughter's laughter ringing through the evening air, it felt pretty close. For the first time in years, I believed in second chances. And maybe, just maybe, in happy endings too.